and I call the member for Goldstein.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And Deputy Speaker, it's a privilege to follow the member for Lyons because some people regard when you're being criticised by the opposition, it's ineffectual. It's like being hit with a wet lettuce. I prefer to compare it more to being hit with kind of soggy Glad wrap. It's kind of just annoying, has no real purpose, and ends up backfiring as you get splattered along the way. But the member for Lyons will understand that well. He, of course, is heading towards the next election where I've no doubt his incompetence and incapacity to be able to deliver for the good people of that state, and of course his electorate will backfire to the point that he will be defeated, but that is his cross to bear. Deputy Speaker, I am of course incredibly proud to support the budget and the passage of this legislation. It's incredibly important because at the heart of it is what we need to do to build and harden the resilience of Australia to get through the ongoing nature of the COVID-19 pandemic. If you go back a little over 12 months ago, of course, we all looked at the global circumstances in which Australia faced. Factors that were outside of our control, a virus that was spreading, origins in Wuhan, China, that had started to spread across the globe. This government at every point has taken the strong, effective decisions to make sure that we can secure our borders, which is the biggest public health measure this country has taken. And by doing so and introducing a system of quarantine, we have able largely to keep the virus out. There have, of course, been what should we call them, burps or situations where there have been blowouts, and we have contained them, particularly in the great state of Victoria, which took an enormous burden because of both the incompetence of our state government in terms of the mismanagement of hotel quarantine, but then, of course, the burden of keeping the virus contained within Victoria so that the rest of the nation was not infected. And of course, other states have had to take prudent and responsible measures at different times as well. And I say that in the context that today, of course, we have seen further cases, yesterday and today, further cases in Victoria, which is a reminder to every Australian that this pandemic is not over. This pandemic continues to pose a very serious health risk. If you are eligible to get vaccinated, please do. Luxuries or risks associated with not being vaccinated are far outweighed by the risks of being infected with COVID-19, particularly for the elderly and immunosuppressed. And we cannot lose sight of that in the comfort that we have secured because we have kept the virus out, and Victoria has shown that that can end in an instant, and you'll be back in exactly the same risk profile that the rest of the world experiences. But that's the health side. There's also, of course, the economic flow-through as a consequence of COVID-19 should we have a significant outbreak. And that is why the focus of this budget is what do we need to do to harden and secure families, individuals, and of course communities and businesses to continue to survive this pandemic, but also to be the foundation of our prosperity as we come out. Because the success of our country is not driven from Canberra down. It is not driven by corporates down. It is not driven by unions down. And it most certainly is not the three of those collaborating to impose situations on the Australian people. Prosperity doesn't come from the few, it comes from the many. It comes through innovation, it comes through drive, it comes through work, it comes through prosperity driven by people taking risks, because you cannot have reward without risk and responsibility. The success of this country comes from the citizen, the family and the community and the enterprise up, and we should never lose sight of that, and that is who the Morrison government is backing every step of the way. And we know that in so many of the programs that we have implemented throughout this COVID-19 pandemic, where our focus is how to back you, the people, not you, the corporates, the big businesses, the unions, and of course this city, Canberra. And we've done so through measures like the JobKeeper plan, which has delivered 8,700 businesses and 30,300 employees in the Goldstein electorate to continue to be supported throughout the period of COVID-19. Now, Labor went on this long tirade about how the wage subsidy of JobKeeper had to continue to operate into the future when it was coming at its deadline in March. And the hard data shows that we now have a lower unemployment level than we had before the pandemic. So to embrace the continued support of JobKeeper, firstly is economic delinquency, negligence and irresponsibility. But in addition to that, the adjustment would only have been greater had we continued to go on. But that does not mean they've changed their talking points, because leopards cannot change their spots. We as a government have made sure that we provide a tax relief of up to $2,745 this year through the lower middle income tax offset for 56,300 taxpayers in the wonderful Goldstein electorate. We provided tax incentives that allowed 24,600 local businesses to fully write off the value of eligible assets that they purchase against their tax liabilities. 8,300 local businesses will be able to use the extended loss carryback measure to support cash flow and confidence. And we know that at this critical time that cash flow is the basis in which businesses succeed, or more to the point is their lifeblood, and if it is cut off, that they will fail. But everywhere I go, Deputy Speaker, I hear a consistent trend, which is we need skills, we need labour, because we have plenty of jobs, if only there were people to fill them. And the very clear focus from this government is to make sure that those who are unemployed have pathways back to secure employment, back to a position where they are able to stand on their own 2 feet, support their families, own their homes, and be the foundation of this country's success. But in many cases, there is a need to bridge divides that occur. That's why we've extended and expanded the Job Trainer Fund that will support 450,000 new places to upskill job seekers and young Australians seeking to achieve work. This budget invests in major roads and rail projects, road safety and community infrastructure programs supporting additional jobs. And there's $3.4 billion committed in the great state of Victoria alone. And if you drive in many places around the Goldstein electorate at the moment, you'll see signs up of major investments, from upgrades to roads and lighting projects, to make sure that our community is in as strong a position as it can be to support people. But we know, Deputy Speaker, that people face different barriers and challenges throughout their working life. And of course, for many families in particular, when they have young children, they balance the tension between raising children and a family, but also in some cases needing a dual income to pay for things like their mortgage and their lifestyle. And that's why there has been significant investment in this budget to improve access, particularly for families with multiple children, to get affordable access to childcare. And 960 families in the Goldstein electorate will take advantage of that. This budget delivers a record investment in aged care. Goldstein is proud, and I say this very specifically, proud to be the home of many of the private aged care providers in the country, because unlike the ideological madness that's put out there by the Victorian state government, we understand that if you want capital on the table which can grow the places for aged care so people can get the support and assistance they need, the government cannot do it alone. And our role is to work with private enterprise, free enterprise, to create the environment where you get investment, so you get quality homes, quality services, quality access to support, so that if you need help, you can get it. And we're proud to be the home of many private aged care providers across Australia. And 26,317 senior Australians living in the Goldstein electorate will get additional assistance through the providers for aged care through additional supplements in the ACFI funding. And that's important, but I'll be frank, I think we need to do more to free up funding to aged care, particularly in terms of the responsibility of the individual. And I've given speeches in the House about this in the past. If you look at aged care and you look at it from the perspective of responsibility, you have the responsibility of contributing to capital to make sure, because it's displacing people from their homes, we need to acknowledge that. There's a responsibility around management and providing services, which of course is a mixture of responsibility between individuals and of course the taxpayer. And when it comes to access to health services and pharmaceuticals and the like, traditionally that falls back on taxpayers, and we should be looking at it from a system of responsibility, because that is the only basis that we can provide sustainable aged care to support the number of people who need places at the quality and the standard and the dignity that we expect as not just a government but as a country, and what older Australians want for themselves, to be in a situation where they can retire, they can go into aged care and live out their days with dignity. And if we don't make sure that there's a sense of responsibility on everybody, all we end up doing is underwriting inheritances and advantage the well-off at the expense of the taxpayer overall. But those aren't the only areas in terms of service delivery that this government is providing to make sure that we get the assistance that people need at every stage of their life, from childcare all the way through to aged care. The federal government has been giving significant funding to invest in local infrastructure, an election promise that we have delivered and will continue to deliver as we work with the state government and councils regarding commuter car park upgrades. In the city of Glen Ira, we have increased the $5 million funding towards the upgrade or to the development of a Bentley commuter car parking from $5 million to $9 million. So $4 million to $9 million, which means Bentley residents, you're going to have access to more commuter car parks with the approval of the council, who have agreed to use their land to develop the site so that you can catch the train easier and earlier without having to run around finding car park. And of course, those streets surrounding the Bentley train station or railway station will be a better position of being free up for people who want to use them, both for residential purposes, but also to access the Centre Road shopping strip. The same has occurred in Elsternwick, where they're working with the council. There's been an additional $2.5 million to take total funding for an upgrade there for commuter car parking to $9 million. Again, aiding Glen Ira residents and those in surrounding communities to be able to access parking. In Bayside, the Hampton Station parking upgrade on council land is progressing with a feasibility study to be completed before the end of the year, and we want to see that project go ahead every step of the way, because when I go and stand at Hampton Railway Station in the mornings and speak to commuters, they say consistently, we need more access to car parking. The state government has been a challenge, but the council is working with the federal government to delivery. Unfortunately, after assessment, the soil at Brighton Beach Station has been deemed too sandy to take additional weight. But at the North Brighton Station, parking upgrade is awaiting approval under the Victorian State Government to use their land. And federal funding has been increased by $4.3 million to a total of nearly $7 million. And once the state government gives the tick off, we will progress with developing that site so more people can have access in and around North Brighton and, of course, the Bay Street shopping strip. The same is also true in Sandringham. We're awaiting approval from the state government to use their land. We've assured that there is making access to additional car parking at Sandy Station, but I've got to say, Deputy Speaker, I'm very worried and very concerned that there's been allegations the state government isn't planning to support the upgrade of additional parking at Sandy Station, but that the existing car parking they're seeking to take away. And that's why they've been blocking additional upgrade of parking at Sandy Station. And what that will mean, if the state government gets their way and takes away those additional commuter car parkings, is fewer people catching the trains, fewer people relying on it. And of course, those people who need to access or park at the Sandy Station will be moving around the surrounding streets and there will be no additional car parking. But we, the Morrison government, and of course myself as a local federal member, are 300% committed to delivering on this project if only the state government would let us. But more critically, I will fight with the state member, Brad Rouswell, every step of the way if the state government chooses to take away the existing car parking at Sandy train station or railway station because they want to put additional rolling stock there, because they will be selling out the Sandy community at the expense of improvements and capital improvements so that they can indulge votes in other parts of the state. It's wrong, we know it's wrong, and we have to stand up against them if they go down that path. Other critical investment in our communities include $1 million for Bayside City Council's Elsternwick Park Nature Reserve project, which is the gateway for many people from Melbourne along the Nepean Highway through down to the city of Bayside. And this reclaimed land from the old Elsternwick Golf Course is going to be a significant nature reserve, which is going to facilitate both water cleansing, which is going to improve the outflow that then goes through to Port Phillip, while also making sure that it provides a beautiful nature reserve for local residents in and around the joining point of the city of Port Phillip, the city of Glen Ira, and of course the city of Bayside. And other significant funding opportunities include the $400,000 that has been given to the Black Rock Yacht Club to rebuild their roof on their clubhouse, a project that Bayside has wanted to see delivered for a very long time but has not been able to secure the funding, and the Morrison government has come along and backed that in. At every stage, Deputy Speaker, we have focused on a budget that delivers for communities. builds the strength and resilience and security of communities as the foundation not just for today but the nation's continued success.
Thank the member for Goldstein. And